Bienvenidos. Welcome to Spanish with Liliana. Today we're going to talk about the subject pronouns, los pronombres sujeto. For the first person singular, we have yo. Yo. It means I. In plural, we have two. Nosotros, nosotros, nosotras, nosotras. Both of them mean we. Nosotros is for an all-male group or a mixed group of females and males. Nosotras is for all females. In second person, we have tú, or usted, usted. Both of them mean you. We also have ustedes in plural, ustedes, ustedes. So all three mean you. Ustedes is for plural. Tú is very informal for your friends or family. Usted is very formal. For the third person, we have él, it means he, and we have ella, ella, it means she, él, ella. In plural, we have ellos, ellos, and ellas, ellas. Both of them mean they. Similar to nosotros, we use ellos for an all-male group or a mixed group of females and males. And we use ellas for a group of all-female persons. I know in English we also use it. In Spanish, it's not technically a pronoun, but it would be eso, eso for masculine, or esa, esa for feminine. To be has two meanings in Spanish. It's two different verbs, ser and estar. Let's take a look at ser. Yo soy, I am. Nosotros somos, nosotros somos. Or nosotras somos, nosotras somos. We are. For second person singular, we have tú eres, which is the informal you are, or usted es, which is a more formal you are. In plural, we have ustedes son, and it means you all are. In third person singular, we have él es for he is, and we have ella es for she is. And in plural, we have ellos son, or ellas son, and this means they are. For nosotros, nosotras, ellos, ellas, the usage will depend on the gender of the persons. Ser tends to denote a more permanent state, whereas estar, which we'll take a look at in a moment, is a temporary state. This is not always the case, but it's a good way to start telling them apart. Let's take a look at how we would conjugate estar. It still means to be, but it's a different verb in Spanish. Yo estoy, I am. Nosotros estamos, or nosotras estamos, for we are. And we'll use nosotros for a male group or a mix of males and females, and we'll use nosotras for an all-female group. In second person, we have tú estás, you are, and we have usted está, usted está. In plural, we have ustedes están. Ustedes están. In third person, él está. Él está. He is. Ella está. Ella está. She is. And in plural, we have ellos están. Ellos están. Or ellas están. Ellas están. They or. Let's look at some examples. Because both of these verbs mean to be in English, it can get a little complicated. The more you practice, the better understanding you'll have of which one to use with what. We can say, yo soy feliz. Yo soy feliz. I am happy. But we can also say, yo estoy feliz. Yo estoy feliz. And it also means I am happy. We can use either one with happy because generally speaking, we are always happy. But if we were to use tired, for example, I'm tired, we wouldn't say yo soy cansado. We would say yo estoy cansado because being tired is not a permanent condition. It's temporary most of the time. Another example is tú eres alto. Tú eres alto. You are tall. This is a permanent condition, so we're going to use ser. Tú estás en la ciudad. Tú estás en la ciudad. You are in the city. Whenever we're talking about a location, we will use estar. Ellos son maestros. Ellos son maestros. It means they are teachers. We'll always use ser with a profession and other nouns. Ellos están jugando. Ellos están jugando. It means they are playing. Again, it's a temporary condition and it's used before the present participle. Jugando is in present participle form. I also want to note here that I'm using the Spanish pronouns in these sentences, but they are actually not needed. The reason they are not needed is because each verb is conjugated to the corresponding person. We're going to talk about the articles. In Spanish, they are used based on the nouns. Let's look at the definite articles first. For singular masculine nouns, we use el. For plural masculine nouns, we use los. And for singular feminine nouns, we use la. In plural feminine nouns, we're going to use las. All of these four words mean the in English. And we use the definite articles much like in English, when we know the person or thing we are referring to. Spanish nouns are always feminine or masculine. There are no neutral ones, but there is a word, lo, which is L-O, that we'll review later on as it's considered a neutral article. It's not used with nouns though, so stay tuned. For the indefinite articles, we have two, un, una, and they mean a or an. Un is used for singular masculine nouns, and una is used for singular feminine nouns. We use them when we're generalizing about someone or something, or we don't really know the person or thing we're talking about. There are two plural words, unos and unas, that mean some or any, and they can be used instead of un or una based on gender. We'll take a look at this later on. Let's take a look at some examples of the masculine definite articles. Masculine means masculino. For singular, we have el. For plural, we have los. El hombre. El hombre, the man. Los hombres. Los hombres, the men. El niño, el niño. Los niños, los niños. The boy and the boys. El perro, el perro. Los perros, los perros. The dog and the dogs. You can see in English we change the plural of the noun, but that stays the same. That's not the case in Spanish. We change both. We change the article and we change the noun as well to plural. Try not to confuse the article el with the pronoun él, which means he. You can tell them apart by the accent on the letter E of the pronoun. The pronoun has the accent, the article doesn't, but they sound exactly the same. Now let's look at examples of the feminine definite article. Femenino. Femenino means feminine. We have la in singular and las in plural. La mujer. La mujer. Las mujeres. Las mujeres. The woman and the women. La niña. La niña. Las niñas. Las niñas. The girl and the girls. La vaca. La vaca. Las vacas. Las vacas. The cow and the cows. And we see the same thing here with the feminine nouns as we saw with the masculine nouns. We're going to change the article from la to las, and we're also going to change the noun from singular to plural. There are a few exceptions with some feminine nouns in singular form. If the noun starts with the letter A or HA and the stress is on the first syllable, we have to use el or un for the singular form. In plural form, we'll use las. Let's take a look at some examples to show what I mean. El águila, the eagle. Águila is considered feminine, especially because it ends in the letter A. But because the stress of the word is on the first letter A, águila, we're going to use el. Similarly with un, the feminine article will be una, but because it ends in A, we're going to use un in this case. Another example is el ave. El ave, it means the bird. Or we'll use un ave, a bird. El hacha. El hacha has the HA example. It means the axe. Un hacha, an axe. So we're going to use this exception because the noun starts with an A or an HA and the stress is on the first syllable. It doesn't happen always, but when it does, we just have to be mindful that the article is different. Of course, if you say la águila, people will understand you. As I mentioned before, in plural, we will have to use las águilas, las aves, las hachas. If you want to learn more about the stress and accent signs in Spanish words, check out my Spanish accent marks video. Let's talk about the indefinite articles. For singular masculine nouns, we will use un. And we can make them plural by using unos. For example, un limón, a lime. The plural would be unos limones, some limes. Un gato, a cat. Unos gatos, some or any cats. Un amigo, a friend. Unos amigos, some friends. For the feminine nouns, we're going to use una for singular and unas for plural. Again, with unas meaning some or any. For example, una vaca, a cow. Unas vacas, some, any cows. Una mesa, a table. Unas mesas, some or any tables. Una amiga, a friend. Unas amigas, some friends. At the beginning of the class, I mentioned lo. Lo is a neutral article, but it is not used with nouns. It's used with more abstract ideas, sometimes with adjectives and ordinal numbers that don't have a noun. And I have some examples for you. Lo bueno es que estamos aprendiendo. Lo bueno es que estamos aprendiendo. The good thing is that we're learning. Lo mío es tuyo. Lo mío es tuyo. What's mine is yours. Lo primero es aprender español. Lo primero es aprender español. The first thing is to learn Spanish. So you can see we're not using nouns here. And this is how you will use the word lo. To be able to use the articles correctly, you will need to know how to identify the noun gender. I'll make a dedicated class about nouns, but as a general rule, all nouns that end in A, ION, and D are feminine. There are exceptions, but this is a good start. All other endings make the noun masculine. We have, for example, la casa. La casa. It means the house. La nación. La nación. The nation. La verdad. La verdad. The truth. All other endings make the noun masculine, such as O, AJE, and E. For example, el oso. El oso, the bear. El viaje. El viaje, the trip. El café. El café, the coffee. Again, there are exceptions to the rule, but this is a good start for you to start identifying them. If the noun is feminine in singular, it will also be feminine in plural. The same thing applies to masculine. There are instances when we don't use the articles. For example, when we have the verb be plus a profession, we don't use any of the articles we've mentioned. An example is eres maestra. Eres maestra. It means you are a teacher. Similar thing with the verb be plus a nationality or religion. For example, soy mexicana. Soy mexicana. It means I'm Mexican. We don't use an article with proper names. For example, Elena es doctora. Elena es doctora. Elena is a doctor. So here we have Elena as the proper name, and we also have a profession. We're not using any of the articles in this structure. We also don't use them with months. Enero tiene 31 días. Enero tiene 31 días. It means January has 31 days. And we don't mix them when using prepositions. Tengo vacaciones de verano. Tengo vacaciones de verano. I have a summer break. So I know I say not to use the articles with the prepositions, but there are exceptions, just like in English. When you have the preposition de plus the article el, it's going to become shortened. It's kind of like a contraction, and it becomes del. Del. For example, la comida de el gato. We wouldn't usually say this because we have two letter E's right next to each other. So it's not correct. The correct way to say it is la comida del gato, which means the cat's food. Similarly, when you have the preposition a plus el, we're not going to say a él, we're going to say al. For example, vamos a el hospital. This doesn't sound correct. So we're going to combine a el to form al. Vamos al hospital. And it means we're going to the hospital. The preposition de could mean of, from, or by. And the preposition a means to. So in this case, it happens because of the vowels. Today we will talk about nouns. Previously, I explained a little bit about the articles and how they're used with nouns. And the one chosen depends on gender and plurality. Today we will talk more about the types of nouns, how to make them plural, and how to determine the gender. Let's begin. The Spanish nouns are very similar to English. We have common nouns called sustantivos comunes, and they are the most common, hence the name. They can be broken down into countable, contables, and that means that they can be counted, like a pencil, un lápiz, or two pencils, dos lápices. They exist both in singular and plural form. We also have uncountable nouns, incontables, and they can't be counted. They're usually treated in singular. For example, sugar, azúcar, or milk, leche, or even money, dinero. Similar to English, they can be measured, as in a cup of sugar or two, but they can't be counted. Common nouns can also be abstract, abstractos, such as love or fear, and they're also usually singular. They can also be collective nouns, colectivos, and that's just a grouping of something, such as people, which means gente, and these are also singular. There are a few other types of nouns, such as compound nouns, concrete or individual nouns, but they are usually rare, and they all fall under common nouns, so they'll have a singular and plural version unless they are uncountable. The one set of nouns that are not common are proper nouns, sustantivos propios. And these are nouns that assign an identity, such as a person's name. Proper nouns are capitalized in Spanish as well as in English, except for the days and months. We don't capitalize those. And proper nouns are usually singular. If you like to learn more about the different categories of nouns in Spanish, leave me a comment and I'll make sure to expand this topic into a new video. Otherwise, this class will be too long. Most nouns exist both in singular and plural form, with very few exceptions like the uncountable nouns. To make a noun plural, we will add an s or es to the end of the word. And today we'll review the most common endings. For words that end in a vowel, we'll actually just add an s to the end. For example, la casa. La casa. To make it plural, we'll just add the s. Las casas. Las casas. Note how the article changes as well. In singular, we use la. In plural, we use las. Another example is un oso. Un oso, a bear. In plural, we'll add the s, and it's going to turn into unos osos. Unos osos, and it means some bears. Another example is el coche. El coche, which means the car. And we're just going to add the s at the end of the word. Los coches. Los coches, the cars. So again, if the word ends in a vowel, we'll just add the s to make it plural. With nouns that end with the letter z, we'll actually have to turn the z into the letter c, and then we're going to add es to the end. For example, el lápiz. El lápiz. It's going to turn into los lápices. Los lápices. You can see here we replaced the letter z with the letter c and we added es to make it plural. Another example is la nariz. La nariz. To make it plural, we're going to replace z with c and add es. And it turns into las narices. las narices. And then we have el pez. El pez. And this one turns into los peces. Los peces. I have a dedicated 30-day course to review the Spanish sounds and to actually learn to read in Spanish. If you haven't checked it out, I'm going to leave the link on the description so you can learn to pronounce these words. All right, for nouns ending in the letter Y, we'll add es at the end. For example, el rey. El rey. In singular form, the Y sounds like the letter I when it's at the end. When we make it plural, it will sound a lot like the English Y. El rey turns into los reyes. Los reyes. So we add es at the end and it becomes plural. Another example is el buey. El buey. Plural, it will be los bueyes. Los bueyes. And the last example is la ley. La ley. It turns into las leyes. Las leyes. Those are the most common exceptions. For any other consonant ending, we'll add es. For example, el árbol. El árbol turns into los árboles. Los árboles. El reloj. El reloj. It turns into los relojes. Los relojes. Una flor. Una flor turns into unas flores. Unas flores. So again, these are the major rules around making the words plural. There are a few exceptions that we learn with practice. As previously mentioned, uncountable, collective, and proper nouns don't have a plural form. And again, if you like more examples of this, just leave me a comment and I'm happy to create another video to review them. I want to take a moment to review the articles in the charts form. So we have masculine and feminine, and then we have singular. For masculine, we're going to use el or un. For feminine, we're going to use la or una. And then for plural, we're going to use los or unos. And for feminine, we're going to use las or unas. So depending on what you're trying to say, you're going to use the definite articles or the indefinite articles. I've been using the articles throughout the class, so you can see which words are feminine and masculine based on the article. But let's take a look at how we can determine the gender. Common feminine endings are a, ion, and d. So words with these endings are most likely feminine. There are exceptions, but this is a great start. So we have la rosa. La rosa, for example. It ends in a, it's feminine, and when we make it plural, it turns into las rosas. Las rosas. And you can see we're using la for singular and las for plural. Another example is la nación. La nación. And in plural, it turns into las naciones. Las naciones. And we have la ciudad. La ciudad. In plural, it's going to turn into las ciudades. Las ciudades. So you can see if it starts feminine in singular, it most likely will also be feminine in plural. There are very few exceptions, and I talked about them in the previous video, but generally speaking, that's how it's going to work. Another rule is with abstract nouns that end in a Z or ZA. They're usually feminine as well, and singular. So I have a few examples for you here. La belleza. La belleza. La honradez. La honradez. La vejez. La vejez. La confianza. La confianza. la esperanza, y la tristeza, la tristeza. So all of these are abstract nouns, feelings, and they are treated as feminine in singular form. Words that end in o, e, or and are usually treated as masculine. For example, el niño, el niño. And then we have the plural of los niños, los niños. Then we have el coche, el coche. And in plural is los coches, los coches. You can see here we're following the plural rule. If the word ends in a vowel, we'll just add the S to make it plural. And then another example is el tren, el tren. And in plural, it's los trenes, los trenes. We have words that end with other letters, but this is a great way to get started if you're just learning Spanish to understand the gender of the words. Let's talk a little bit about people, personas. When we talk about people and professions, we tend to have a feminine and masculine version for it. And the article changes as well to correspond with the person's gender. For example, el hombre, the man. We have the woman version, la mujer, la mujer. El doctor, and the feminine version is la doctora, la doctora. And then we have el maestro, and for feminine we have la maestra, la maestra. So you can see based on the person's gender, we're going to use the corresponding article, and then the word changes a little bit. There are instances where the noun stays the same. For example, el cantante. For feminine, we say la cantante. The word cantante means singer, so it doesn't change, only the article changes, and that's how you would know if the person is female or male. For animals, animales, the gender usually determines the article used as well. For example, el gato for a male cat, and la gata for a female cat. The same thing with el pato, la pata, el perro, la perra. So we have male on the left and female on the right, and the article corresponds to the gender. We also have the situation where the name completely changes from male to female. El toro, for example, it means the bull. The cow is la vaca, but it's very similar to English, right? Today, I'm going to talk about the Spanish possessive pronouns. As with other pronouns, these are words that are used to replace a noun that has been mentioned previously. Los pronombres posesivos, the possessive pronouns, vary in gender and number. Let's take a look. For yo, I, we're going to use el mío, for singular masculine nouns. For singular feminine nouns, we're going to use la mía, And in plural, we'll use los míos, for masculine plural nouns. And for feminine plural nouns, we'll use las mías, These 4 words in Spanish all mean mine in English. For the informal you, tú, it's very similar, but it's el tuyo, la tuya, los tuyos, for the plural masculine. And can you guess the plural feminine? Las tuyas. And these 4 words mean yours for the informal you. And we'll review a few sentences in a minute. For the formal and plural you, for he, she, and they, the possessive pronouns are all the same. In singular masculine, we have el suyo, el suyo. In feminine, la suya, la suya. And in plural, we have los suyos, los suyos. And las suyas, las suyas. These words mean his, hers, yours, formal and plural, its and theirs. For nosotros, nosotras, we can use el nuestro for singular masculine, la nuestra for singular feminine, los nuestros for plural masculine, and las nuestras for plural feminine. And these words mean ours. Let's take a look at some examples. Ejemplos. Tu carro es negro y el mío es azul. Tu carro es negro y el mío es azul. Your car is black and mine is blue. Car in Spanish is el carro. So we are going to use el mío for the possessive pronoun. Let's look at a plural example. Tus libros están aquí. Los míos están allá. Tus libros están aquí. Los míos están allá. Your books are here. Mine are there. Here we're talking about books, and it's in plural, and it's a masculine noun. So for the pronoun, we are using los míos. Let's look at more examples. Mi casa es pequeña. La tuya es grande. Mi casa es pequeña. La tuya es grande. So here we're talking about a house. My house is small. Yours is big. Casa is a feminine noun. La casa. So we're going to use la tuya, yours. Esos son mis libros. ¿En dónde están los tuyos? Esos son mis libros. ¿En dónde están los tuyos? Those are my books. Where are yours? So here we're using los tuyos because we're using books in plural. Mi celular es viejo. El suyo es nuevo. Mi celular es viejo. El suyo es nuevo. And this one is a little tricky. My cell phone is old. El suyo could mean his, hers, theirs, yours. Is new. So here you really have to pay attention to the context, right? You'll have to know who the conversation is about. Mis zapatos son negros y los suyos son blancos. Mis zapatos son negros y los suyos son blancos. My shoes are black and his, hers, theirs, yours are white. So shoes are a masculine plural noun. That's why we're using los suyos. When you need to clarify who you're referring to or about, you can also use a prepositional phrase. Instead of mis zapatos son negros y los suyos son blancos, we could say mis zapatos son negros y los de ella son blancos. De ella is the prepositional phrase. And here, de ella means those belonging to her. And we can expand on this in a different class, but I just wanted to give you a different option. The last example that I have for you here is su gato es blanco. El nuestro es negro. Su gato es blanco. El nuestro es negro. His cat is white. Ours is black. Gato is a masculine noun. That's why we're using el nuestro. Estas flores son nuestras. Estas flores son nuestras. These flowers are ours. Flores is a feminine plural noun. That's why we're using nuestras. In Spanish, they're called sílabas. This will help you understand how the words are pronounced. In Spanish, all letters are pronounced with a few exceptions. The silent letter in Spanish is the letter H. For example, hombre, hombre, huevo, huevo, búho, búho. The H doesn't make a sound. It's just the vowel sound. There are situations where the U is also silent, and letras silenciosas mean silent letters. When there's the QUE combination, as in queso, queso, the U doesn't sound. Or we also have the QUI combination, as in quién, quién. And then we have the GUE combination, as in guerra, guerra. Or the GUI combination, as in águila, águila. When you have these combinations, the U doesn't make a sound. Other than these exceptions, everything else is pronouns. Hay dos tipos de sílabas. There are two types of syllables. Open syllables end in a vowel, and closed syllables end in a consonant. Spanish tends to prefer the open syllable structure, so we'll focus a lot on the exceptions today. ¿Ya conoces las vocales? Do you know the vowels? It's important to understand the vowels as they are the center of the syllables. You probably already know that the vowels are A, E, I, O, U. A, E, and O are considered strong vowels, and I and U are considered weak vowels. This is important because the way the vowels are paired together dictates if they're within the same syllable or separate. For example, two strong vowels together make two different syllables. Leer has two letter E's, and because the E is a strong vowel, this is going to have two syllables. Leer, leer. A strong vowel next to a weak vowel in any order makes a diphthong, so they're part of the same syllable. For example, aire, aire. And this is how the syllables are broken down. A, I are together because A is strong, I is weak. And then we have the second syllable, which is or E. But you still pronounce all of the letters. With the AI, it's just a little bit quicker. Aire. Two weak vowels together are also part of the same syllable. For example, ciudad, ciudad. We have IU together, so they're going to stay with the same syllable. And it's also a quick pronunciation. Ciudad. In Spanish, there's such a thing as a diphthong, and it is made by one strong vowel between two weak vowels. And so they stay part of the same syllable. We have, for example, the word buey, buey, and it's actually just one syllable because the letter Y is treated like the I. There's one big exception to all of this. When there's an accent mark on a weak vowel, it becomes a strong vowel. For example, país, país. We have the letter A and it's a strong vowel, and then we have the letter I and it's a weak vowel but it has the accent. So that's going to turn it into a strong vowel and it's going to create its own syllable. País. We will look at accent marks in a different class, but it's important to note this exception. Once the weak vowel turns into a strong vowel, all of the previous rules apply. There are words with one syllable, like yo, and there are words with two or more syllables. Some examples are amor, amor, it has two syllables, casa, casa, it's 2 syllables as well. Tomate, tomate, it's 3 syllables. Persona, persona, it's also 3 syllables. And we'll take a look in a minute at how they are formed. Amanecer, amanecer. It has 4 syllables. Llévatelo, llévatelo. It's also 4 syllables. And then we have reconciliarse, reconciliarse. This word has 5 syllables. Generally speaking, a syllable can be a vowel, a consonant and a vowel, or 2 consonants and a vowel. A consonant can't be a syllable on its own. After the first syllable, all other syllables start with a consonant, unless there's a prefix, such as in the word desorganizar. You can see that the first syllable is des, and then the next syllable is or, because that's how the base word starts with. Let's take a look at which letters go with what and some rules. The most common structure is the consonant plus vowel structure, where we have casa, casa, it has 2 syllables, rosa, rosa, the same structure, so we have consonant plus vowel. Mesa, mesa, and the last one is lápiz, lápiz. On this one we see consonant plus vowel, and then we have consonant, vowel, consonant. We also have a structure when we have 2 consonants, and when they occur together, one letter belongs to one syllable and the other belongs to the next syllable, as in these examples. Accidente, accidente. You can see the letter C is divided. One goes with the letter A and one goes with the letter I. We also have inmediato, inmediato. The N stays with the letter I, the M goes with the letter E. For inmediato, we also see a weak vowel I with the strong vowel A, so they are going to stay within the same syllable. The next word is obtener, obtener. The B is going to stay with the letter O, and then the T is going to stay with the letter E. And the last one is cuenta, cuenta. And the first syllable is long because we have the weak vowel U and the strong vowel E, so they're going to stay together. But of course, there are some exceptions. Whenever you see these consonant groups together, they stay together. They can't be divided. So when you have words with BL, BOR, CL, COR, DOR, FL, FOR, GL, GOR, PL, POR, and TOR, all of those combinations are one together. Some examples are blanco, blanco. We have the first syllable. It only has one vowel, so they have to stay together. B-L-A-N, blan, and then we have C-O, co. Cuadro, cuadro. Here we have the weak vowel U together with the strong vowel A. So those are going to stay together, and then the rest is a second syllable. The or stays together. Libro, libro. We see again here that the BR is going to stay together. The last one is tres, tres. And this one is actually one syllable. It only has one vowel, so it's going to stay as one. The final exception on this topic are the letters elle and r. Whenever you have the 2 L's and the 2 R's, they're going to be treated as a single letter, and they're also not going to be divided. Here are a few examples. Perro, perro. The 2 R's are going to stay together. Ballena, ballena. The 2 L's are going to stay together. Llamada, llamada. Tierra, tierra. So again, here, the two R's stay together. We also see the weak vowel I and the strong vowel E, and they stay together on the first syllable. Today we're going to talk about the Spanish accents and the rules of stress. As I explained before, all the letters or pronouns in Spanish with very few exceptions, and generally speaking, the stress of the voice falls on the last syllable, while the accent marks are used for the exceptions. We'll start with the easiest accent. It's called la virgulilla, and it's the tilde sign that goes above the letter N, and this becomes ñ, and it's part of the Spanish alphabet. There's really not much to it. This is the only letter that uses it, and we have plenty of words with the letter. For example, niño, niño, it means boy. Baño, baño, it means bathroom. So this one's fairly straightforward. We'll take a look at the next sign, and it's la diéresis. Diéresis, or it's also called crema. And these are the two little dots that go above the letter U when we want it to sound in these syllables. We, or we. If the little dots are not above the U, these syllable combinations would sound like ge and gi. I've mentioned this sound before on my Spanish reading course. I'll leave the link to that video on the description. And much like the previous signs, you'll only see this accent above the U in these combinations. So it's fairly straightforward. We have cigüeña, for example. Cigüeña, cigüeña, and it means stork. We have pingüino, 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 and it means penguin. If the diéresis were not above the U, these words would sound like cigueña and pinguino. Cigueña and pinguino. So it sounds very different. So remember, when you see the little dots above the U, we're going to make the U sound. Let's move on to the third accent, and it's the most difficult of the list, is la tilde. And this accent mark is the tilted line above the vowels. This is only used on the vowels. It doesn't go above any consonants. And it doesn't change the vowel sound. It's used for the rules of stress within the syllables. And we'll take a look at plenty of examples as we move on. Remember that at the beginning I mentioned that the stress of the voice falls on the last syllable. Well, the tilde is used when there are exceptions to the rule. For example, Mexico, Mexico. Without the tilde on the E, it would sound different. It would sound like Mexico, Mexico. And we'll take a look at more of these examples so that we practice. Let's look at some of the rules. Words that end in N, S, or a vowel will have the stress of the voice on the second to last syllable. And we will start counting the syllables from the end of the word. Let's look at some examples. We have the word hola. Hola, it means hello, and it has two syllables. La and o. La is the first syllable, o is the second syllable. Remember that the H in Spanish is silent. We have meses, meses, and it means months. And this one ends in S, and it also has two syllables, ses, me. Ses is the first syllable, me is the second syllable. And then we have tienen, tienen, which means they have. And again, we have nen and tie. Nen is the first syllable, tie is the second syllable. I have a previous video where I talk about syllables and how they're formed. I'm going to leave the link on the description. Going back to our rule, words that end in N, S, or a vowel will have the stress of the voice on the second to last syllable. So we say hola instead of hola. we say meses instead of meses. And we say tienen instead of tienen. I hope I'm making sense. If you listen to the words, you can hear the difference. One of them has the stress. So we will use the tilde or the accent when we deviate from this rule. Let's look at some examples of the words that end in a vowel, the letter N or the letter S, but have an accent. We already saw Mexico at the beginning, and it's Mexico. And it has 3 syllables. It has co, he, me. Since this word ends in an O, the rule says that the stress should be on the second syllable. So it should be Mexico. Mexico. But for whatever reason, that's not how we wanted it to sound. So we add the accent to the vowel within the syllable that we want to stress. So we want it to sound like Mexico. Mexico. And that's why the E has the accent. Let's look at another example. Alemán. Alemán. It means German. So Alemán has 3 syllables. Man, le, a. Because this word ends in N, the stress should be on the second syllable. And you can see the second one is le. So instead of Alemán, this would have been Alemán. Alemán. At least that's what the rule says. But we don't want it to sound like that, so we're going to put the accent on the A at the end, and it becomes Alemán. Because of the accent, we know we have to stress the last syllable. And the last example here is inglés. Inglés. It means English. And it has 2 syllables. Glés is the first one, in is the second one. The rule says that the stress should be on the second syllable, so it should have been inglés. Inglés. But it's not, it's inglés. But we have to put the accent on the vowel of the first syllable so that we know we have to stress that one instead of following the normal rule. All right, so at the beginning I said that for the most part the stress is on the last syllable. So for words that don't end in N, S, or a vowel, the stress will be on the last syllable, as in these words. Feliz. Feliz. It means happy. Feliz. It has 2 syllables. Lis is the first syllable. Fe is the second one. So the stress is on lis. And when I said the last syllable, I mean when we write it. So the stress is going to be on lis. Feliz. Otherwise, it would have been feliz. Feliz. And that doesn't sound so good in Spanish. We have abril. Abril. It means April. And again, it has 2 syllables. And the stress is going to be on the last one, which would be number 1. Abril. 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 And then we have azul. Azul. It means blue. And again, it has 2 syllables. And we're going to stress the last one. Azul. Azul. And again, here we will use the tilde or the accent when we don't want to follow that rule. We're going to look at some examples of words that don't end in vowels or the letter N or S. So the stress would be at the end, as we saw previously. But because of the accent, the stress is not on the last syllable. So we will pronounce them differently. We have lápiz. Lápiz. It means pencil. So we have our syllables. And we have the accent on the second syllable as shown on the screen. And that's what we're going to stress. Lápiz. Otherwise, it would have sounded like lápiz. Lápiz. And it's completely different. The second example is árbol. Árbol. It means tree. And again, we have 2 syllables. And we see the accent on the second one as listed on the screen. So that's the one that's going to have the stress. Árbol. Árbol. Otherwise, it would have been as árbol, árbol. And again, that doesn't sound right. And then we have útil, útil, which means useful. And again, it has 2 syllables. And we see the accent on the U, so we're going to stress that one, útil. Otherwise, it would have sounded like útil, útil. And again, it doesn't make sense. The accent will help you know how to pronounce the words when reading them. And if you listen to them, the spoken stress will let you know where the accent should go so you write them correctly. I want to talk about vowel combinations. The class that I have on the channel about syllables explains how the letters A, E, O are considered strong vowels and I and U are considered weak vowels. When they're next to each other, the strong vowels will have the stressed. For example, we have reina, reina. It means queen. But the stress is going to be on the E because that's the strong vowel. Re, I, na. This is technically 2 syllables, and I explained why the I doesn't make a separate one on that video. But it's because one is strong and one is weak. We have another example here, igual, igual. It means equal. So again, we have 2 syllables here, igual, and we're going to stress the A on igual, igual. You can hear the difference there, and it's because it's the strong vowel. So if you see a weak vowel plus a strong vowel in any order, they will be part of the same syllable. When you see a diphthong formed by I and U, the weak vowels, the last one will bear the stress. For example, viudo, viudo. It means widower. And again, we have 2 syllables here. And we have, on the second syllable, we have I and U. They're both weak vowels, and the stress will fall on U because it's the last one. Viudo, viudo. There are certain situations where the weak vowel has an accent. So either I or U will have the accent, and they will become strong vowels, and they will create their own syllables. For example, país. País means country, and following the rules of Spanish grammar, A and I should be together in one syllable. But because it has the accent, I moves to its own syllable. So it's going to have 2, and the stress is going to be on the I. País, país. Another example is río, río, which means river. And again, it has 2 syllables because the I has the accent. And the last example is reír, reír. It means to laugh, and it has 2 syllables, and the I has the accent, so it's going to be stressed. Reír. Accents are also used when 2 words are spelled the same but have different meanings. We usually don't add accents to 1 syllable words, but here are a few examples. Más, más means more. Él means he. Sé means I know. But we also have these words with different meanings. And the difference is the accent. Más, without the accent, means but. Él, without the accent, means the. And sé, without the accent, means himself. There's no actual difference on how we pronounce them. You will learn them based on the context of the sentence. But if you've seen these words, it can get a little confusing because you're seeing them the same except with the accent. But this is why they have the accent, is to tell them apart. And then we also have accents on the Spanish question words. And I'll make a dedicated video to question words and how to form questions, but here are a few examples. Que means what. Donde means where. Cómo is how. Cuál cuál is which, quién is who, and cuándo means when. Today I have some common adjectives to use in Spanish. Adjectives are called adjetivos. There are two very important things to remember with Spanish adjectives. They go after the noun. For example, in English we would say the black cat. In Spanish we say el gato negro. There are exceptions to the rule, but we'll focus on this one today. The second thing is that the adjective has to agree in gender and number with the noun. Let's look at some examples. The big house would be la casa grande. You can see how big, which is grande, has been moved after the noun, after casa. The white car in Spanish would be el carro blanco. The shiny diamond is el diamante brillante. So you can see the adjective comes after the noun in Spanish. We won't review colors today as I'll have a class on them very soon, but let's take a look at other common adjectives. So I'm going to show you the English adjective and then I'm going to show you the Spanish adjective in the different forms. So singular masculine, plural masculine, singular feminine, plural feminine, and then a sentence. For tall, we have alto or altos. And these are both for masculine. Alto is singular, altos is plural. And for feminine, we have alta in singular and altas in plural. And then we have our sentence, los árboles altos, the tall trees. Next, we have short, which in singular masculine is bajo. In plural is bajos. Singular feminine is baja. Plural would be bajas. El niño es bajo. The boy is short. Happy, feliz for singular, felices for plural, and these are the same for masculine and feminine. Ella es feliz. She is happy. Sad is triste, and then in plural we have tristes. And again, this one is the same for masculine and feminine. Estamos tristes. We are sad. Fun, divertido, divertidos, divertida, divertidas. El juego divertido, the fun game. New, nuevo, nuevos, nueva, nuevas. Mis zapatos nuevos, my new shoes. So you can see here, zapatos is plural and it's a masculine noun. So we're going to use nuevos, which is the plural masculine adjective. Old, viejo, viejos, vieja, viejas. La casa vieja, the old house. And we have a feminine noun, casa, so we're going to use the singular feminine adjective, which is vieja. Tired, cansado, cansados, cansada, cansadas. Ellas están cansadas. They are tired. Clean, limpio, limpios, limpia, limpias. Las manos limpias. The clean hands. Dirty, sucio, sucios, sucia, sucias. El suelo sucio. The dirty floor. The most difficult part of learning these words is the fact that they have to agree with the nouns in gender and number. So one word in English can have different variations in Spanish, but there are some patterns that help. You can see a lot of the masculine singular adjectives here end in O, and to make them plural we just add the S. and a lot of the feminine singular words end in the letter A. And to make them plural, we add the S. There are some exceptions like feliz and triste, but the others follow that pattern. And this will hopefully help you identify the gender and number of the words. Today we're going to learn question words in Spanish. Questions or preguntas. Preguntas. What is qué? ¿Qué? Tengo un ejemplo. I have an example. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? What happened? The structure of the question is very similar to the English structure. But in Spanish, we have to open with an interrogation sign. Right before the question word, we will open with that interrogation sign and then we'll close with the closing interrogation sign, just like in English. Where is dónde? ¿Dónde? ¿Dónde está el baño? ¿Dónde está el baño? It means, where's the bathroom? When? ¿Cuándo? ¿Cuándo? ¿Cuándo es tu cumpleaños? ¿Cuándo es tu cumpleaños? When is your birthday? You can see the Spanish questions open with the interrogation sign, and they also close. Another thing that I want you to note is that the question word has an accent. The accent is important because without it, some of these words actually become relative pronouns, which we'll review later on. Let's continue with the examples. How is cómo? ¿Cómo? ¿Cómo te sientes? ¿Cómo te sientes? How do you feel? Which means cuál, cuál. That's used in singular, or cuáles, cuáles. ¿Cuál te gusta? ¿Cuál te gusta? Which one do you like? If we're going to use the plural one, we would say ¿cuáles te gustan? The verb has to be conjugated. In English, it would mean which ones do you like? Who means quién, quién in singular, or quiénes, quiénes in plural. ¿Quién está trabajando? ¿Quién está trabajando? Who is working? In plural, it would be ¿quiénes están trabajando? So we have to make sure that the verb is conjugated. Whose, de quién, or in plural, de quiénes, de quiénes. And this is used for possession, right? Very similar to English. ¿De quién es la casa? ¿De quién es la casa? Whose house is it? Why? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué llegas tarde? ¿Por qué llegas tarde? Why are you late? How much? ¿Cuánto? ¿Cuánto? ¿Cuánto cuesta? ¿Cuánto cuesta? How much does it cost? As I mentioned earlier, we will open with the interrogation sign and we'll close it as well. The structure of the words is very similar to that of the English structure. Sometimes the words don't translate exactly to Spanish. For example, what's your name? We learned that what is ¿qué? But this question, we don't use it with ¿qué? In Spanish. We will use ¿cómo te llamas? Which really translates more to how is your name? Or we also use ¿cuál es tu nombre? ¿Cuál means which, so which is your name? So I just wanted to bring this example up because it's not always the same. But this is a very common question, so it's something that you learn from very early on. The other example is, how old are you? In Spanish, we would ask, ¿Cuántos años tienes? We previously saw that cuántos means how many, or it could mean how much as well. So it kind of translates to how many years do you have? But it means how old are you? So this is just something for you to be mindful of. Thank you for joining me and see you next time.